Qapla world, it's Bird of Prey 5. So to my own surprise, I've actually seen Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and I am compelled to give a short review. I also feel I can better explain the final scene, and I spotted a new force power that everyone has missed, even the biggest Star Wars fan, of which I honestly am not. I really enjoyed the original trilogy, and I liked the prequels, eventually, and I disliked the Disney trilogy, though I did like Rogue One, and I stopped watching Solo about halfway through. So that's my mindset, so you know where I'm coming from. And yes, there will be spoilers, so please, if you don't want to hear any, come back when you do. So all in all, this clearly wasn't the worst movie in my opinion. I'd rate it much better than The Last Jedi in that I thought it at least tried to be fun. I genuinely laughed at some of C-3PO's lines, and I think he owned the first half of the movie. There must have been some soot in the air as well, because some drops of water, some type of liquid, started filling my eyes. Not so much when Leia died. That I thought was just stupid. But when Chewie found out Leia died, I wept with him. I mean, the soot must have come in about that time. Because man, my eyes were watering. It was by far the most emotional part of the movie for me. Now, had I not read the spoilers, I suppose the apparent death of Chewbacca and his surprise reappearance may have tugged at me too, but I already knew that was going to happen, and it's my own fault for not avoiding the spoilers. So I feel like I might have hurt myself knowing that one. That was the only spoiler that hurt the movie, in my opinion. I appreciated that unlike Star Trek Discovery, they didn't feel the need to update the displays, the graphics, or technology of the ships. The Millennium Falcon has the same 70s style, future, line-drawn displays as it always did. And finally, the fact they specifically addressed the Holdor maneuver as something completely unfeasible was great. I wish they explained away more of The Last Jedi as one-offs. So those were some of the things I liked. What didn't I like? Granted, it had been a while since I saw The Last Jedi. I mean, since it came out on video. But I didn't think Poe, Finn, Rey, and Chewie were bests of friends, like they seem to be now. They had good chemistry, even great chemistry in this movie, but it felt completely unearned. Lots and lots of coincidences. Finn's feelings for Rey? Why? Why is Finn annoyed at Poe's past? Is that any worse than Finn's past? And C-3PO is programmed not to translate Sith, but tells them how they can overcome that block in his programming? That would be a pretty massive exploit worthy of a recall in the real world, right? I mean, if it says, "Oh, you can't read this. It's encrypted, but here's how you can read it if you really have to." That's bull crap. That would never happen. And although it's not new, how BB-8 is able to follow Rey across the terrain, narrow bridges, and even large gaps that need to be jumped, it's all nonsense. And I've overlooked worse if the rest of the story was good. These are relatively minor points, I know. The big ones are unforgivable in my opinion. Mostly they center around the Force healing and the Force teleportation power. I don't care that we saw a teleportation in The Last Jedi. We also saw the Holdor maneuver in The Last Jedi, and they were able to explain that away, why it could never happen again. They should have done the same here. If we accept Rey and Kylo can do these things, why didn't Yoda? Why didn't Luke? Why didn't any previous Jedi heal anyone? You know, in the movies. I know in games and beta canon, but in the movies, no previous Jedi healed anyone. So we must either conclude that they were incapable and therefore significantly less powerful than Rey or Ben/Kylo, or they chose not to, which makes them assholes. And I'm not sure which is worse. Glaring flaws aside, there are others, but I'm keeping this brief, and I think I have an explanation for the final scene that is causing so much grief. And I have to say, when I look at it this way, Rey taking the Skywalker name is not nearly as objectionable as it first seems. So Palpatine specifically calls Ben the last Skywalker when he force zaps him. Ben is a Skywalker, not a Solo. Then Rey and Ben share a moment, a passionate kiss, where they clearly were meant to say they loved each other but didn't. I suspect this was more than a simple kiss, but a marriage by the Force of some type. From the kiss onward, Rey is the wife of Ben Skywalker until he dies, leaving her widowed. But as the wife, she has all rights to his name. When she shows up on Tatooine and sees the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia, they aren't giving her permission as some sort of incestuous parents, but as the rightful Skywalkers, affirming her marriage to Ben and her right to use the name she married into. Is it a perfect ending? Far from it. Would it have been much better if Ben tried to heal Rey, but she was too injured, and Rey said some final words telling Ben to continue where she left off, and he buried Rey and the lightsabers on Tatooine, and when asked who he was, Ben replied he was Ben Skywalker? Yes, that would have been better, but it's still 2019 and that wasn't going to happen. There's still one surprise left. A totally new Force power that has been seemingly overlooked even in the hours and hours and hours of reviews I've already watched. Rey is, for all practical purposes, dressed in white this entire movie. She sits on the ground, climbs up cliffs, walks through wreckage that is decades old, sits in ships that have been sitting in the desert or underwater for 40 or more years, and at one point even falls through mud into an underground cave. And never once are her clothes anything but white. No mud, no blood, just clean white. This can only be explained by a previously unknown Force power, the power of OxyClean. Yes, OxyClean. Nobody knew it, but here it is. We've seen it firsthand. So that's my review. It could have been worse. It should have been better. But it held my interest, and I didn't hate everything about it. Star Trek Discovery is far worse to Trek than this is to Star Wars. I'll give it a 5 out of 10, with the acknowledgement the more dedicated a fan you are, the lower your score will likely be. Is it worth seeing? Yes. Once. Maybe once when it comes on home video. But that's probably about it. Unlike the original Star Wars, I don't see myself rewatching the Disney trilogy ever again. Qapla all, and take care.